In the Blue Ridge Mountains of North Carolina, near Asheville, stands a palace so massive and so carefully preserved that more than 1 million people walk through it every year without fully understanding what it really is. To most visitors, Biltmore is a beautiful historic estate, a symbol of old American wealth, a tourist attraction. But in reality, Biltmore is something far more unusual, a private home that survived when nearly every other estate like it in America failed. Because Biltmore was never meant to be practical, it was never meant to make money, and it was never meant to last this long. Biltmore is the largest privately owned house ever built in the United States. Construction began in 1889 and took 6 years to complete. More than 1,000 workers labored day and night. Its architect, Richard Morris Hunt, modeled the design after French Renaissance chateaux. Inside were 250 rooms, 42 bedrooms, indoor plumbing, central heating, electric lighting, an indoor swimming pool, a bowling alley, and its own power plant, luxuries that most American cities didn't even have yet. George Washington Vanderbilt II built Biltmore not to impress the public, but to escape it. Born into the Vanderbilt Railroad fortune, George had more money than he could ever spend. Unlike other industrialists, he wasn't driven by factories or expansion. He was a book collector, a traveler, and an intellectual. Biltmore was his private world, a self-contained European estate hidden in the mountains, complete with forests, farms, and villages that existed solely to serve the house. But the problem was simple. Biltmore consumed money at an extraordinary rate. The staff alone numbered in the hundreds. Heating the house required constant fuel. Repairs never stopped. Taxes climbed every year. The estate did not generate income. It only burned through inheritance. As long as George Vanderbilt lived, the costs didn't matter. Then, in 1914, George Vanderbilt died suddenly at the age of 51. Overnight, the dream lost its creator, and the burden fell entirely on his widow, Edith Vanderbilt. Edith inherited one of the most famous homes in America and one of the most financially dangerous. Maintaining Biltmore was no longer an indulgence, it was a threat. Even for a Vanderbilt, the costs were crushing. The family fortune was shrinking. The estate's land had to be sold off piece by piece just to keep the house operating. And then, history delivered its final blow. In 1929, the American economy collapsed. The stock market crash triggered the American Depression, wiping out fortunes that once seemed limitless. Across the country, grand estates were abandoned, demolished, or seized for unpaid taxes. The era of private American palaces was ending. Biltmore stood directly in the path of that collapse. By 1930, Edith Vanderbilt faced an impossible reality. If nothing changed, the estate would eventually be lost. Selling it outright would mean surrendering the Vanderbilt legacy. Letting it decay was unthinkable. There was only one remaining option, one that high society considered humiliating. She opened the house to the public. In March of 1930, Biltmore began charging visitors $2 for admission. Ordinary Americans, many struggling just to survive the Depression, were suddenly walking through halls built for one of the richest families in history. Private bedrooms became exhibits. Servants' corridors became tour routes. What had once been a sanctuary of wealth became a spectacle. It was a radical move, and it worked. Tourism kept Biltmore alive when nearly every comparable estate disappeared. What began as an act of desperation slowly transformed into a long-term strategy. The house became a museum, then an experience, and eventually an entire business ecosystem. Hotels were added, events were hosted, a winery was built, agriculture returned to the land, this time as a commercial operation. Today, Biltmore is no longer just a mansion. It is a massive tourism enterprise generating more than $300 million a year, employing roughly 2,400 people, and operating year-round as a luxury destination. Yet despite all of that, it remains privately owned by Vanderbilt descendants, a rare survivor in American history. The irony is impossible to ignore. America's largest private home only survived by becoming public. Every visitor who walks through Biltmore today isn't just seeing Gilded Age luxury, they're witnessing the moment when old money collided with modern reality and adapted just enough to survive. Biltmore is not a frozen relic of wealth. It is a reminder that even the grandest dreams can collapse unless they are willing to change. And that is the truth hidden behind America's most famous mansion.